Yeah, I would say like you guys go off and start. Elijah's going to start fixing things. No ads, just modifies at this point. You're going to go out and start tweaking things as well. Maybe you do 5 edits, 5 feature edits a week. Maybe it's 100. Maybe it's one. But sooner or later, it's you kind of come back within a few weeks, a month or whatever. You got to do it all before 10/31. Just be aware of that. So you got to fine tune it. So okay, I'm ready to set up a meeting. We had some, we talked to Elijah, talked to Doug, and these are some issues we came across, or we needed to re-examine this. I think that's totally a sensible way. This is why it's nice to be the first editing group out, because when City Edits comes down the pipe, it's going to be like, well, sorry, guys, the contract's over. You guys don't get any help. It then falls to us, basically, in IT. But then it comes back to how much time do we have? So, like we just discovered Nathan yesterday. Nathan Mustafa's team has some data sets that they use City Editor for. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you guys should have been involved with this more in the beginning. But okay, here's the location of the data. Tell me the data you maintain so we can tell DCSC these are the 5 data sets you guys maintain. But you guys being first off have this lots of flexibility to nail it down. Water will have that. Cadastral probably will even have it. But the longer it goes, electric and cadastral will have less flexibility that water, and because water's going live next week for training. So the three groups and your workflows are exactly the same pretty much, you're dealing with points and lines and they all connect. So sorry to go on a little ramble there. It's been a long day.
No, it's good.
All right, Haritha, my MXT is loaded and everything's ready.
Okay, I do see that you still have a couple of layers pointing to the SQL GIS dev. What are those layers, and should they go to the other?
So some of the data we haven't copied to production.
That would be the reference, the QC grids.
Yeah. So the QC grid, you should, let me look. I think I added I just did some ads. I added Elijah to.
It wasn't there yesterday. Nope, I see it now.
Okay.
I see it now. It wasn't there yesterday when I mapped that.
I had to add some stuff for Doug. And as I was in there, I was like, well, wait a minute. I think I need to give you Synergen. And Mike didn't even have RCFC storm drain. So I thought, you know what, is storm related. So it's flood control, but it's still related. So let me go ahead and give you guys all this access. I do have a copy of Parcel Fabric Cadastral Reference copied to the production box. I can grant that if you really want that, but cache may come back and want changes. And so I have it to the point where there's no tying into it yet, because if I need to fix it, I'm going to just delete the whole feature data set and do a reload from dev. Technically, everything in SDE dev or edit dev is in the production database now. It's just nobody has access to anything. Just because I'm trying to set it up to the point where when I need to kill a feature data set because we need to add a field or something, I have less people affected. Like, oops, I got to kill that, and I didn't update it for a couple hours. And you guys are editing, and you're like, well, I can't see parcels. I'm sorry, I deleted it because we're doing these changes. That's essentially why I haven't given you access to it on the production. And Elijah's been granted everything that Mike has. Mike doesn't see everything that Elijah has. I don't think Mike sees into wastewater. If Mike needs to see into wastewater, we can give them select rights on the wastewater data. But
yeah, they need the select rights on.
I don't see
You don't see
I
that
don't
layer?
see this feature class
Oh, yeah, let's make
in
sure what,
the
right.
Okay, let me look.
in the
Let me take a
production
look.
database.
Let's actually give a right click, open up the attribute, open up the properties of that layer.
Just a
That,
second, I'm switching this one first.
okay.
I know where this one is.
Mhm.
Sandra, this should be in maps, right, Ted?
Yeah, hold on a second. Okay, I'm gonna grant you access. Sorry, I didn't grant you access to the wastewater. I'm granting you access on GIS Edit. Theoretically, I've copied this data. I'm sorry, I'm getting confusing here, but hold on a second. So now you have access to wastewater reference data on GIS Edit. So this is okay. This is a thought that's been going on in my head for the last 24 hours. My initial idea was this: like, you'll
I see
connect to cadastral, but you guys, wastewater, you own wastewater reference data. So I'm going to give you access to that data on the edit box. You don't own cadastral. You'll connect to cadastral and maps. You'll connect to everything. But if you own, like, Mike kind of owns stormwater. He owns Synergen storm drain. He kind of owns RCFC storm drain. Public safety planning and stormwater GP 2025 are planning related, but they're your data. So I'll grant you guys access on here on edit. There's going to be literally less disk contention on edit because there's only going to be 25 editors. While GIS maps, you're going to have web services, paper maps, the rest of the city editing. So I may, if we find that there's some performance problems on everybody connecting to cadastral, we could just grant it on edit. I'm trying to work it out in my head right now. What's the best method? Right now it's maps to link to data that you don't own. But while data that you do own, I think we can just keep everything in edit. Just so it streamlines it, makes the process easier, especially after Haritha was able to demonstrate yesterday with the idea that sometimes you guys are going to end up with two defaults. It may not affect you guys as much, but it's been able to see it with the water data. So
Yeah, if you start connecting to the maps database and then like there's an additional database available, and so you have the um, default version showing up on both. So
and GIS Edit Dev will still be on just GIS Edit Dev. You'll switch that over because that should be Centerlines is part of. Oh, you could switch it off CAD temp. Yeah. So right now it's pointing to CAD temp on GIS Edit Dev.
mm-hmm.
Go to GIS Edit Dev and open up cadastral. Open up cadastral, either cadastral reference. It's probably cadastral. And there should be a center line. Yep. So CAD temp was the old data model. This is the new data model.
I'm also noticing base map layers missing here, as in like parcels and.
Well, so parcels is actually in parcel fabric.
Yeah, but in the MXD, I don't see them. So we may have to add them.
Oh, okay.
So you wanted me to remap this one to GIS Edit Dev?
Yeah. I would remap the center lines from CAD temp to the street center line in Edit Dev. And then in the near future, probably in the next once Cash kind of comes up with his initial, if Cash doesn't add anything and it comes back and says, okay, I'm not adding any fields, I'll go ahead and start granting people access to the data on edit and map. But until then, I'm going to keep it here. Yeah. And the reality is GIS edit dev will work for a long time. It just won't work when I kill it. But we really don't need to. So it's, in the future, once you guys stormwater and sewer, you guys are now the system of record now is edit. So now everything goes back to dev, while everybody else is still edit dev. I'm doing edit changes for circulation and zoning still, and so now I'm actually starting to edit them as non-version edits in production on the edit box.
I had a version in there yesterday.
Did you have a version there yesterday?
I did, because I made it yesterday while we were in the meeting.
You know, I might have deleted it because I did a lot of updates and I wanted to make sure that your version had all the changes. Basically, I did a bunch of changes for waste on service and tap for asset ID, and I wanted to make sure that your version had those changes. So I probably killed it just to be on the safe side.
I'm trying to remember the neighborhood this is. Mike, what's the neighborhood to the top north of the city to the east? It's outside the city limits.
Sorry, I was on mute. Outside the city limits, Spring Mountain
High
Ranch,
Grove, right?
High Grove. Okay,
It's High Grove, yeah.
Yes, that's High Grove, right? That's what I thought.
correct.
My brain
Yes.
isn't functioning right yet.
I'm noticing that it's saying GIS edit up there on the geodatabase administration. Uh, is that correct?
Well, so he's logged in as OS authenticated. So it says Riverside /eQt at rc-sql-clu1-ao2/GIS edit. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the correct data.
Yeah, but he's always authenticated in, so that would be Riverside Kersey.
Okay.
I have a guy on my water polo team. His last name is Keys, but as you pronounce it Keys, but when you see it, you just think, oh, it's easier to say Keys, right? I have another guy named Rob Reister. It's Reister. It's not Reister. Now, another cool thing to think about would be if we were to do this as a workflow where you set everything up, you create a version, and we use tokens, and the tokens could pull in the neighborhood. If we actually have a neighborhood, do we have a neighborhood called High Grove?
Yes.
Okay.
It's outside the city, but yeah.
Like Spring Ranch, we don't have a polygon that says Spring Ranch, but I don't
No,
think.
because that's part of the High Grove area too.
It's a,
Is there a
yeah, there's a
polygon?
lift station and stuff out there that we've added. So these are all areas that Doug added last year.
So if there's
so,
any mess ups, it's
You can see here on some of them is that the flow is backwards. Right. Well, you can see right here on several of the lines where the flow is backwards.
Yep.
But yes, these are the areas that we were running into the problem last year where we didn't have enough tiles in the area. So Doug had to stop working on this specific line because we didn't have any cadmi tiles in the area.
Yeah, we added tiles late in the process, but
Right.
Yeah, that was one of the last things Bruce Thomas worked on.
Before he
Yeah.
disappeared.
So
Yeah.
that's
So yeah, so Harith, are
so
you?
this is one of the lines we have at High Grove.
Does he have rights to go ahead and just flip that line as
Yes.
an editor? Right, you just select it and just do a right click and do a flip line, right?
Yeah, and flip.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
You guys can
Yes.
school me on the geometric network stuff.
That is one of the, that's what I'm saying. It's why I was zoomed into this area. So we can just practice here. But that's why I'm going to be working on fixing different problems with the data set before adding in new things. We've got more than just this area where the lines are flipped. Some of them are a lot older than others.
I believe we have when we ran the data reviewer, we had identified a lot of errors already. I don't know if you got a chance to run the
Yes.
RBJ file, like all of the checks. So you will find things like this,
I
and
have not.
maybe,
So let's start from the beginning.
okay. So we are looking at this. You have already mapped to the right data sets. Let's scroll down. I couldn't see any parcels, and I wanted to make sure that you were able to, because you really need them some, even though you're making corrections and all, but you still want to see them. So
Right.
if you don't find parcel,
Yes.
what happened to them? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out. Is this a
I
copy
have
of
not
them?
changed.
Uh-huh.
It was the same MXD that we were using before. So I don't know.
So
I
you can
have
just
not
go out,
changed, removed anything, or added anything.
so
Okay.
you can just go out and grab it from the parcel fabric feature data set on GIS edit dev.
I would recommend actually getting a copy of the MXD and bringing those layers in, because along with that we set the symbology, the scale references and everything, like at what scale the layers become visible and not. So that's why I was asking if we can use the symbol, the layers from the other file.
But
So
for the
This is the most recent MXD that we worked on together.
but for right now, he can literally just go open up the
yeah,
parcel
you can
fabric
do that. You can
and
do
grab
that.
the
Maybe I
parcel.
can figure out how to set those layers myself.
Yeah,
So
that's definitely something. hmm So
This guy
you,
right here, Ted, or the whole thing?
yeah, I just grabbed the parcel layer. Now, parcels is weird because when you look at it, it doesn't just show the tax parcel. It shows the right of way, register, record of survey, map, track maps. So you could play with the symbology. This is where Haritha would say, "Oh, okay, well, you don't need record of survey, right of way, center line, tax parcel, or track map." But for now, for your purposes, you can leave all that, and then in time you can tweak it.
yeah, you might also want to bring in the lines, because sometimes the lines display faster than the polygon. So, and you can turn off the polygon.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, they usually are faster that way. Yes.
I think it's a universal thing that lines are always faster than polygons, and points are faster than lines.
Okay.
Sure looks pretty though. I can't wait to see Doug editing this in the near future.
Okay. So you can change it to light gray, change the scale at which they appear. Um, you know how to do that, right? You can rename the
Yes.
layer and move those to the bottom of your list so that your infrastructure shows up on the top and the remaining ones at the bottom. So you can make a group of those two. Actually, what's under reference? Can you expand the reference node? Okay, can you expand the land base node? Group land base. Oh, there. it should have been. You can move these layers to there if you would like them all to be like, together. Okay. You can make them all the gray color, so that I'd like to usually use
I'm not particularly concerned about the symbology today.
okay.
We don't need to worry about what color they are.
Okay. The one thing I would definitely make sure is the layer is the scale at which they show up, so that you when you're zoomed out all the way, you don't see the whole thing.
I would just leave parcels turned off, keep lines on instead of maybe a scale dependency on the lines. And just,
That
yeah, I
was
just copy.
9,000. I'd set it to like 6,000 on the
That's
parcel.
good.
Yeah, that's for street center lines. So street center lines are okay. Yeah. Okay.
There you
So
go.
yeah, so that gives you the background information, the parcels. And also, I didn't see the ArcGIS online layers, but you can bring them in. I'm trying to see if they're already here or not. You can add them in here. You use imagery and any other base map you like.
Okay, Aretha, what's next?
Okay. Let's make sure that you have your attribute assistant table in there. The dynamic values table. So if you um, go to the database symbol up there in the table of contents, and then
It's the source button.
mhm, list by source, and so the dynamic value table is there. Okay.
So you probably would want to map that to the production one.
I think it is already production.
Well, right now it's showing up as just at a dev.
Yeah, right.
Go to
Okay.
properties, look at the source, because it may be a bug in the software. Click on source. Yeah.
It's coming
That's a
from
bug.
GIS edits, so it's just the name.
Yep, it's a bug. That's a bug.
Here, I'll just,
Just remove.
there you go.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elijah.
Does that make you feel better?
Oh my God, thanks. You feel so much better now.
Okay. So you have everything set on the production. The next thing to do
Do
would
we
be
have
to make
address
sure.
points? Horita, just a quick
Yeah,
question.
go
Do we
ahead.
have address points here?
Hello?
Am I still connected? Hello?
Yeah, there was a little bit of like disconnect. We couldn't hear anybody for a minute. Can everybody hear?
Yes. What was the question, Latha?
address points?
I can add them in as needed. I
Okay.
don't generally draw that layer or add that layer unless it's specifically needed, because there are quite a few of them.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is, where do you want lateral to get the address? Let's say you're adding a new service connection.
Okay.
You want that coming from the parcel, or you want coming from the address point?
The parcel is already open, so if the parcel has the address, it can pull from there. But we can add in the address point as well.
Yeah, the only reason.
I don't like to have I don't have
Okay.
like to enjoy, or I don't like to have a large number of extraneous layers in my MXD if I don't particularly need them.
Okay. Right now, the attribute editor is configured to get the address from the address point.
The dynamic value table, Lata, for the attribute assistant, is that what you're talking about?
Correct. Mhm.
How does it do that? Would you actually have to connect the lateral to the point?
Yes. No, you don't need to connect it. It will grab from the nearest address point.
Oh, it's got like
Yeah.
it applies like a select by distance or whatever.
Yes.
Oh,
If
There
you
you go,
don't
Lala.
want it, yeah, then we can change it to parcel, or so
Yeah,
that's
it's just a
No,
matter
it's
of.
there. It's fine.
yeah, you don't need to turn it on. Just leave them there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
right. Let's flip some lines.
Yeah, let's start editing. Now we know that you're able to create a version, that's checked off. Then let's see if you can start editing and uh, edit some of the data.
Oh yeah, that's you're gonna love that. I mean, just, well, you probably already know. It's just the whole toolbars. They don't necessarily always go where you want them.
What was that message that?
It said, wah, wah. I mean, I have a feeling that because he's added some data that is in relationships with other data, it may be the issue, but I don't know. They were just warnings. They weren't errors.
Can you stop editing and start again? I just want to make sure because I saw an unusually high number of layers in that warning. So, okay, you're choosing. You can directly choose your yeah, that one there. Okay, just hang on. Why does it say about the permissions? Check to see if you have appropriate permissions. That's happening on every single layer. I'm okay with the dynamic value not being editable, and that's okay. But if you say continue and then you try to edit, that's what I'm. Let's say continue.
Well, the editor panel didn't pop up, so
You can go to the last button. Okay, see permissions issue. So let's see.
I blame
Um,
Ted.
Okay, so go ahead and do it again. I had to grant you insert, update, delete.
maybe close the MXD and come back in again. Save it and close and come back.
Yeah, you can try that. You have the right stuff.
Just a second, I've got to go dismiss my son from school.
Sure. This hardware acceleration dialog box that's showing up again, I think it's because he's using a remote desktop, right?
I
So
don't know.
it shows up on the remote desktop for me, I think. So
Yeah, I had that come up on, I mean, I just tried remote desktop today and it came up for me too. And it threw me for a loop because it did not appear on the screen, that dialog box, and then it froze ArcGIS out. And I had to figure out how to get it up there, get that window to show up so I could click it.
okay. That's tricky if you don't see that box there. But maybe the next
Yeah, I
time you
think,
go ahead, sorry.
no, I know. I Googled around and try to figure it out. I think if you push Alt and space or Alt and tab, it'll come up to the front. So,
Okay, that's good.
or that's at least what worked for me.
Mhm.
Start editing. Ah, see, you get to move that toolbar down.
I'm going to delete the damn thing. Hey,
Okay.
there we go.
That's good.
If you need to edit the wastewater mains, which is county data set, I think, let me know. We can always download it to a file database, and then you can copy and paste into a version if that's what you want to do. Right now, it's not. I didn't set it up so you can edit it.
Okay. We have a lot of mains within the city that are owned by colleges and other private apartment complexes and HOAs. So I'm not going to be deleting them. I'm just going to be editing their attributes so that they're not popping up in work orders. It's still important for them to be part of the network because they're flowing through our lines. So when we have spills and other blockages, that's important, but I don't want them popping up into our work orders like they're doing now. So those are just different types of edits that I'm working on. Let's see, we're going to make a gravity main.
Let's check the attributes to see if the attribute assistant populated the wards. At which point I'm also thinking if the wards were added to this MXD or not. Okay, can we look at the
I was unselecting the parcels, just a second.
okay, sure.
Map sheet populated.
Ward isn't. We need the ward layer.
That's nice. Okay.
So I did copy admin boundaries out to GIS maps, and you do have select rights to admin boundaries, and then wards is part of that. Or if you want to temporarily just use it from GIS Edit Dev, you can do that too.
No, I'm mapped to GIS maps. I'm just not sure why it wasn't. I thought I added it yesterday. Aretha, which group would you like me to put it in?
That would be okay to have in the reference layers. Yeah.
And call it just wards.
Words. Yeah. Rename the layer, please. And the reason why we have to do it is because the dynamic values table is looking for the layer name.
Does it mean he has to reconstruct that line, or?
No, you can run the tool, run the on create rules. So there is in the attribute assistant up there. If you,
Run manually, or?
yeah, you can run create rules for selected features. That was, I think, yeah, you were just on the
The right.
one button
That
from,
said run manual.
no, the next one.
One more. Cool. This will be the first time I get to see this rule. So when you click that, it's going to go out and grab.
So I've got 5 features selected, 2 manholes, 3 mains.
Mhm.
So let's go for that.
Let's see
Okay.
why. We have to open up the dynamic values table.
Close out of the table and reopen it.
Yeah, that could be one more thing. Can you open up the attributes on your attribute table?
What's that?
Can you open up, or you can close these tables and reopen them?
Show me the money.
Ah, not yet done.
Oh.
Let's check.
Well, that didn't work.
Yeah, it didn't work. But we got to see a bubble run.
Let us look at the dynamic values.
It looks good.
You know what I can see is we're a little weird in that line is that when you look at the enabled field, you saw that. Can you go back to main real quick? Go back to main. Yep. See how it says enabled? Where's that? See how it says the true? There's 2 true. There's a true that's off. Why is that?
Because you clicked. If you click,
Yes.
I think if you clicked on it, maybe I'm thinking that is that why it looked.
Okay, never mind. It's just it's a graphic
Yes.
button. Okay. Sorry to bug you. Sorry to bother you. Sorry.
No, it's okay. We're trying to see why the word didn't show up. One thing is maybe we are looking at ward number, wards and ward number. Let's make sure that that field is present in there, which is called ward number.
Yeah, looks okay.
So we have ward and then we have ward number.
Properties. Yeah, let's look at the properties. Yeah, that is the value.
So the other ward we don't need then.
Oh, the first is the
This,
name.
this
There's
area,
no 9.
this area is
This area is
outside of the
outside of
city.
Oh, it
This
is.
would be a 9.
Okay, that makes sense. Maybe we should try somewhere else.
Oh, yes, it's outside the city.
If it's outside the city, then the script will take care of it. SPLID script.
Yeah, will it count the ward to be 9 though?
Yeah, that will set it to 9.
Okay. We could have spent all day working on this one. Are you going to kill this version when you're done with it?
I can't delete it, so you're going to kill it.
Okay. Yeah, just let me know when you want me to kill it.
Okay.
Because I was doing that.
I can try to delete it after.
Okay. You own it, so you should be able to delete it.
I know that we said that last time, and I wasn't able to then, but I will give it a shot.
Now let's look at the attributes.
Yep, just a second.
Okay, maybe you can make them unselectable so you don't have to worry about them all the time.
Yeah, I will eventually, but I'm not worried about little miniature things like that today. So
Okay.
this is populated with Ward 1.
Right. That looks
I just didn't want to
correct.
spend 2 hours worrying about which layers are selectable and things like that. It's just a waste of time.
Sure.
You got to understand, Elijah is an ex-Marine, so it's all about being protective.
Efficiency.
We've got a map sheet populated. We've got the
You got the word.
ward populated.
Okay,
So
sounds
good there.
great. Okay. So the next thing, Lata, would you like to show the SPLID, right? You wanted to check.
If you go in our catalog, on the catalog view on the right, just get.
Should we stop editing?
The requirement for that is that you're in an
Yes.
edit session, right? For
Yes,
the SPLID.
Okay.
Yeah, you can run.
Okay.
I'm just wondering what.
Where the toolboxes are for SPLID.
Yeah, it should be under C.
I know where they are.
Okay, yeah, let's get to them.
Before we start running, I have a quick question. On the left side panel, I'm seeing the tree view. There's any layers that still map to default? I see something SDA default. What's in the SDA default?
You mean the one under which you have the maps?
Yeah,
or
and then
below,
one
below
more?
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
one more below that.
That's the cadastral
Okay.
So he's mapped
data, but that's coming
Word.
from development environment.
Okay.
That's why. Yeah.
I'm not in a version for that specific database
Okay.
because I pulled it from a different data source.
Okay.
Once Cash tells me we're not going to add any fields, then we can move that to production.
Okay. Okay. Let's run and see the tool. If it assumes that all are in one version. Let's see.
This
Well,
one here.
he's only going to calculate. He's not calculating address point, center line, parcel fabric lines, or parcels. When he runs his tool, conceptually he should be. It should only work with whatever he's got an edit on, and the edits are all on a single version.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. Yes, it's the first one. Just click OK.
Oh, okay, here we go, Lata. Good luck.
How many will update? Can anybody give me a count?
5.
We should have 6 lines and 4 manholes.
Right.
Okay. Let's scroll up and see how many manholes.
I thought I saw 2, but
Working on it.
Okay. 6 mains.
mm-hmm.
Oh,
And
because it grabbed the other.
Other
ones
3
above.
that we created.
Yeah. Okay. That was a trick question.
The other three that we created, so 6 mains and 4 manholes. Yes, it
And-
was 6 mains, 4 manholes. That's what I created
But
in this edit session.
right, and
And
then there's also number of WARD records updated to 9. So that's also it's tracking.
And 2 manholes,
yeah, falls
2
outside.
manholes.
Mhm.
That's correct. So that's good.
Okay.
So
Okay,
that's
you want
good.
to check the asset ID that's been assigned? You can see that right there, I think, on those mains.
Yeah.
Yep, it's right here.
Okay. Let's close this window.
Come over here to the manhole.
Let's check the attribute value.
Mhm.
So
Those-
103,
Okay,
104.
now I want to run the upstream and downstream. So that's going to be these buttons up here, correct? Run manual tools for selection features.
Correct.
Is that the next step?
Uh-huh. Yes.
Are you ready for that, or did you have something else in mind,
No.
or am I jumping the gun?
No,
No,
you're
let's
good. You're good.
go ahead and
Go ahead.
try.
That's interesting. So you run
Here
the
we go.
manual tool. I must have been asleep when you guys went over that. I wasn't asleep, but I was probably gazing. So you run the manual tool.
I
Then
think
it
you were
goes back
talking.
to- Huh? So you run the
So I
manual
think you were
tool, it
talking.
goes back, grabs the dynamic value table, and then does the upstream pipe ID, downstream pipe ID. Okay.
So I asked that question right as we were leaving yesterday,
Oh, okay.
and they went over the dynamic rules here. So the upstream and downstream is not an on create; it's manual only.
Mm.
Yeah, that's
You see.
because when you do the on create, you won't have the
That's-
ID at that
that's-
time. So
right.
that's what-
So Elijah, what I told
Right.
Lindsay.
No, I understand. I was just telling Ted.
Yeah, it's what I told Lindsay yesterday is
Go
if
ahead.
you and Mike want to dabble around with the dynamic value table, copy it out to a file geodatabase, make any changes. We'll copy it to the dev box, do some testing. If everything works out and everybody checks up on it, we'll load it back into production. Because
Okay.
this table could probably be used beyond the way we're using it right now.
I have no doubts that it could. And this particular tool needs to be run on the entire data set. So
We
to add those
noticed
upstream and
that.
downstream numbers, because those are values. We added those fields.
Yeah, and there's also the rotation, the symbol rotation ones that you can run on the entire data set, because there could be some plug end caps that need to be rotated as well. Something to
Yeah.
look at. A lot of the data errors can be corrected this way really quickly. Um,
Yeah.
the other en masse edit I can see that your team will be doing is taking all the water network junctions that are at the intersection of the lateral and the main line, and then changing that to something more appropriate like a tap or a Y, depending on the angle of the lateral. So if
Yes. That is something that I'm working on, identifying what we want or how we're going to be fixing most of it.
sure.
Another one that I have to be doing a lot of is where we have lines that where they're split. So I will be merging a lot of lines.
Hmm.
So because a lot of situations, our lines should start and end with a manhole. So if this section of the line and this section of the line have different SPL IDs, which is a very common situation right now, I need to merge these two lines so that it can follow the rule that it starts and ends correctly.
I think there's one thing we noticed is that because of the Kogo setup that you have on these lines, every time you create a line and you try to make a next, like a deflection or something, then it actually is breaking it. Lata, is that the correct as a reason that it's happening, right? Because of the Kogo
Yes.
rules that we have. Yeah. So when you're editing, if I mean usually the sewer mains, I mean they don't just bend just like that, right? So but it's something to keep in mind that you may have to create them that way and then merge them later if you're creating new
Right,
lines.
right. That's
Hey,
not a
Elijah?
big problem. Yes.
Yeah, so on that, not really related to this, but if you have two segments with different SPL IDs, what are you planning on doing on the UM side as far as historical maintenance data?
So that is going up in the air with
He's gonna come back to
our
me.
scheduler, Jake. Jake is going to be making the final call. So here is a spreadsheet where I'm going through and picking out all the different problems. So this line right here, or something. So these O2 numbers, they need to be fixed. Or all of these different lines need to be fixed. So this is a segment of this other line. And then our scheduler wants to then change those records and update it, because a lot of these situations, the line is 2 feet or the line is this and that. So that is something that our scheduler is currently working through. And once we go live and I start making those edits, then he will be adjusting UM to fix it.
So those are going to be
That
manual
sounds like fun. For Jake.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a lot of fun for him. You know, I'm the main thing is that I told him I don't care if we just do a couple a day or just a little bit at a time, as we want to be moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
So
No, we got to fix it. It's just painful.
it has to be fixed, and it is going to clean our data a lot for many different reasons. So it's something that we are looking at and fixing. That
Is
is a great question, Mike.
that merging that's
Yeah.
going to happen at the end, at the tile boundaries, is that correct? Mostly that may have been the reason why they got split without any valid manhole point.
Not necessarily. The theory that I have a lot of the time is it was an endpoint or a node that was there originally and the line was added on later, is one reason that could have happened. So let's say the line stopped here and then they added on later to here and then it continued to expand. Or it was a repair or a replacement that was done at some point, and they didn't keep the same asset ID on it. So it then that new section that now has a new ID. I believe in most cases it was the first scenario I listed where it was an endpoint at one point, and then it was added to without combining it.
Okay.
That's
And
kind
that
of.
was
I don't
probably
want
just a
to.
technical difficult. That probably just wasn't available 30 years ago when we built Cadme.
Mm-hmm. Possibly.
I have a question. It's kind of. I don't know if it's really for this meeting, but since you guys have a lot of experience, maybe you can answer. So let's say you do have a break in a line and you have to put in a some type of junction or other type of point data fitting or something else to fix that. Now the new segments, or not the new segment, the line segments on each part of that fitting or whatever you put in to fix it, do those typically, like as far as an asset thing, would they typically get new asset IDs? Would you break it up, or would you just keep it all the same asset ID
If
for
the
that
if the
line?
attributes, yeah. So for example, there's a line replacement for the portion of segment between the manholes, then that means that the pipe's material is going to change, right? So whatever appurtenance was used, that should be recorded, and then also
That's what this other layer is for. We have a whole nother layer for that, recording that information.
Oh,
And
for
that
repairs,
is
right?
in the, yes.
repairs and
So that would
relining.
record all of that information.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so and
That's
that
what
would
those,
just be on. We would write that, or that layer would be just on top of the other layers, right?
yes, it could be displayed on top of the other layers. I would
Mhm.
keep the same asset ID in there for historical purposes. And this,
Okay.
the reason we have this second layer is because we cannot do dynamic lines.
Dynamic segmentation.
Correct.
Yeah,
In a geometric network.
correct.
So once we get to a utility network, we might be able to scrap the repairs piece and move to dynamic segmentation of our lines and be able to fluidly change that information.
That's interesting.
Where this section, it was installed in 2018, and this section of the line was installed in 1970. So that is somewhere that we want to be going, but it is not currently possible
Yeah,
with geometric networks.
Okay.
right. And at least as long as you have it in the repairs layer saying that this is a newer section of the main, and you have that information, then people who need to use it can always overlay both of them and then see, that things have changed along the line. Like for example, newer section came up. There's also the way to track the relining. Relining is one more thing people track using that layer, the repairs layer, saying that this section of the main has been relined versus not the entire main.
Good. Thank you all. I guess once we get to that point where we're at utility network, we'll have more fun conversations about this.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you know about it, Elijah.
Okay. The next thing that we need to do is the data reviewer, and make sure that your RBJ file is pointing to the right database and everything. So we should go about that, I think. At this point, if you want to stop editing and not save the edits, then that's fine.
Or you can save the edits and then we'll just kill the version.
I'll leave the version live because I need to go in and flip those lines. So that'll be a good first practice
Yep.
because that was in High Grove.
Sure.
All right.
Okay. Let's go to the data reviewer and start a session, and then make sure that you can point to the QC grid and everything. And then we also make sure that your RBJ file is pointing to the right?
Is this the start session button?
Yep. Browse. Yep. Browse to the.
Browse to the.
Yeah, yes. Production QC just check. No, go back up.
It's Adam. I'm back.
It's just select it and then say add.
Can you guys?
Just in time, Adam. We're just starting off on this one.
Yes, Adam. We can hear you.
Yep. And then do a new. You're gonna be number 2. Oh.
401.
See, look at that. How
I'm
does it go from 1 to 401? So what I would recommend is your session name. I would call it something other than session 401. I'd call it session 401 Elijah or project area or something like that, just so you can identify. Because otherwise you'll have a ton of sessions in there and you won't know what they all mean. So you could do it. You could align it with the version number. Something we should try to see if we can do. That might be even a data reviewer a workflow manager. Can we add that? Build a session, tie the session back to the version, maybe through tokens or whatever. And then start session. And click the advanced button. And then I'm going to let Adam take it from there. This is what we're paying him for. He knows about this. He knows it. He's a data reviewer guru now.
So you need to set up the grid, right? I usually don't do it from here, but we can just close this window if you've started a session. And then, yeah, on the data review toolbar, the final button, if you haven't done that. Not that one, the one actually all the way on the right. All the way. There you go, with the magnifying glass. So the grid's in there. Right click that real quick. The reviewer overview window, please. Properties. Okay, active grid. Where it says none, let's go to browse. That one.
That's not it. It's
All
the
right.
QC one, QC grid, right?
Yeah, the QC grid.
Okay, so Doug, you're going to have to do all this.
Okay, so hold on. It has the grid. Is this grid in your map already? Yes or no? Did we add it?
No.
Yes.
It is?
Yes. Yep.
Yes, it's already in my map.
All right, so we are probably, when did you add it? And why and how did you add it?
Yesterday.
Yesterday? Because you were
It's right here.
okay. Well, all right, so I guess we don't don't add it to map then. Just field to label, then just the page number. Page grid or whatever. Field to label, please. Page grid. And you can label it. Checkbox. Okay. All right. Now it would be a good time to maybe run a small portion of the reviewer checks, see you can get an error, and check the table. Did you guys validate the
No.
No.
Go to the button to the left to select data check.
yeah, select data check to the left.
The button to the left.
Button to the left, sorry.
Now, what I do recommend is after we set this batch job up for you and Mike, if you guys want to explore them, you do them individually by just doing the select data check, just so you understand the different checks.
Yeah.
Highly recommend it. You can do it in production or do it in the test. But for right now, just click the button to the left. Yep, that one.
This one?
Yep.
I was gonna say
this is the button you're ultimately, so when you click on it, can you click it? Yeah, there you go. So this is where you define essentially the batch job. But so you're going to open up the batch job and then validate it.
Just give it a moment. I was going to say those individual checks where it says select data check, that might actually be a good one to run your unique ID check if you're trying to do it just layer per layer and not, needing to search every layer in the database. That's a unique ID.
But Adam, I think it's a good idea to put together some of the, because there could be configuration in that, and you might, if it's a repetitive process, it's better in a batch, job file.
Yeah. Okay, so you can validate this. No. Click no. And then we're gonna have to set the workspace. And you're gonna want to switch it. So you want to pick the
second one down.
Clean out. And then change data source. And now you're gonna select that clean out from your file space.
Yep. Apply all.
Mhm.
Then you go take the vertical scroll wheel and go. Let's go out of the bottom. Right now we only have the top one. Let's see if there's anything else in there. What I'd like to do, you don't have to do it. We can go and try to fix the other one. Is well, the top. I think that's it. I think that's just the workspace. So let's right click on the workspace one at the very top and do a change data source just to make sure. Go all the way up to the top to the parent, to where the .sde file is located. So click the production GIS edit, say OK, say apply OK. And it probably would just inherit what you did, but then say OK at this point. And now save as. And then call it something like fixed, or date stamp it and then fixed, or just overwrite the one that's there. Now click validate. Interesting. I wonder why that. At this point, just say OK. And then we're going to go back to the data reviewer toolbar. The easiest, quickest way to fix that validate is you just accept it. You say, yeah, add it to the map, but then it overwrites your layers in the table of contents. Click the 3 check boxes, which is 3 buttons over. Yep, click that one. Then open up the add from file. Open up the wastewater. Let me go talk to my dog. Second. Yeah. Bye. And then at that point, let's connect to your version. Yep. And then say OK. If we had selected sets, we could select selected sets. That would help narrow down probably. Because right now it's going to grab everything in the extent. So. And say run.
Not the entire thing.
Oh, yeah. Turn off. Yeah, it's okay.
All right.
We got time.
Well, I was going to say, so my workaround, when you create that geodatabase connection with the version, you actually, that's how you get rid of those validation errors from that other window. But because you're setting the workspace here, I think it usually, that's why you can validate it here.
So what I would suggest is we take out asset ID unique check and we either set it up as a separate reviewer check, or you do it like they said and when you run it manually. Right? That's what you guys were mentioning?
Yeah, we have to separate out that check.
I'd almost let Mike and Elijah just keep running it to where the point where they're banging their head into the wall. And then they'll say, didn't you guys say something about this? And we'll say, yeah, just remove it out of the reviewer job.
It just takes 4 hours to run that. I mean, if you ran the whole file.
I did a map one time that took over 12 hours just to convert to PDF. That was a lot of fun.
Wow.
The customer insisted it was a wall map, 1 to 100 over a very mountainous area, and he insisted that we have all of the contour lines very, very detailed in there. It was a very large,
With
intensive
aerial?
map. What's that?
With aerial imagery?
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Actually, yeah, it was terrible.
And the PDFs don't open sometimes after that, after all the trouble. So that's hard.
Yes, that's correct. And sometimes it will crash and you won't know.
Say close. It's okay. And open up
Nice.
the reviewer table. You guys are gonna hate Data Reviewer in about 9 months. You guys will all hate Data Reviewer. It's got a lot of neat power to it, but I'm just speaking from experience. You're gonna be like, oh my God.
I would say they will start loving it because, all the errors getting fixed and everything, you get that message that no errors found or very few errors. You're
That's
going
a
to really
positive
like
note.
it.
That's a great way to look at it there, Aretha.
I agree. We're collecting the metrics as to how many errors we have so that we can, get them fixed and how quickly they're being fixed, essentially.
So what we got to do now is associate the QC grid with this. So go to the 4th button down, and I'll let Adam speak. He's the expert. He's the data reviewer expert.
Adam?
Yeah, go ahead and click the table properties.
I have a feeling after this project, Adam's never going to want to talk to data reviewer ever again.
I use Data Reviewer for all my QC stuff
Oh, okay.
in Arc Pro and
Yeah.
ArcMap. Go to grid. I don't share your frustrations, however. Link current grid.
Yeah, right now it seems like there's overwhelming number of errors, but you might say, okay, this check is not really making sense, or like for example, the cutback check, you might want to just
So
remove it.
Like, okay.
click OK.
Yeah, I'm not really concerned. I'm happy to be getting it fixed. It's something that we can be working on steadily.
Right.
Now close out of the reviewer
But
table.
we haven't been able to work on it for 2 years, and it hasn't been touched in a long time. So this is something that we can be making progress on.
Close out, X out the table, and then reopen it again.
You were letting Adam drive.
I let him just do the detail configuration stuff.
Oh, okay.
I'm a big picture
okay.
guy. Adam's the detail guy.
What's next?
So you see the QC grid there, which is basically, organizing your um, check by QC grid. So you can organize by that, and then you can, um,
Right. I saw
right,
you guys do that yesterday.
yeah, and then you can visit grid by grid and fix those errors or things like that. Well, let's see that. That's interesting.
Yep.
You can right click the arrow. All right, why isn't it letting you zoom? You should be able to
That's
just
what
right click
I'm
and
trying to do.
If you double click it,
don't do it.
you get the blinky.
Don't do it.
I was here yesterday.
Yeah, so you should be able to right click it and even and say even select it, so it'll select it in actual ARC map, not just on the reviewer table, and then you would be able to zoom to it that way as well. So there's a couple ways to do it, but you don't have any.
Let's go to that.
That's weird. That's really strange. He doesn't have those extended options.
I wonder if it's a geometry issue, but let's check. Is that highlighted?
Maybe turn off some of your background layers for a little bit.
Like the base map.
Base map,
Mm-hmm.
parcels for just a second.
I wonder what the shape length is if it doesn't display. Let's
zoom
look
in.
at the row. Go all the way to the right. Yep.
Oh, it's 0.
Yep. So this is why you cannot see it or zoom to it, and then also that your grid came out to be null. And smack, it put a record in this. I'm thinking it's a corrupt geometry, and it put it right in the middle of the city. I'm thinking that's why you got to that location where where you got to right now. There is no,
Yeah.
yeah.
You're probably like right in the center of the data set.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have the address, so I will be able to find where it should be and fix it.
Yeah, fixing this would be a little bit tricky. If you went there, would you be able to
I would
create?
go there, and then I would pull up the plans for that area, and then I would drop the lateral where it should be according to the as-builts.
Yeah, and then
Yeah,
you can copy the attributes. Yeah, that.
Yeah. But you'll ultimately have to delete this, and you may not get a selection, so you may actually have to find a feature. Like there's probably not a selection anchor, but you'll have to do is go in and do like get the unique asset ID and do a select by attribute that grabs that exact asset ID, and then that will do the selection. Zero geometries are challenging, just so you know. If you don't know.
So this.
So would I be able to copy this asset ID? I would be able to populate this same asset ID into the new feature, and it wouldn't get overwritten because there was something there, correct?
So when you create the new lateral, you can copy the entire attributes and then paste it on the new lateral and then get rid of this. That way you won't have redundancy. Although,
no problem.
Yeah, what I would also like to say is these errors are, like top level errors. These kind of errors needs to be fixed sooner than later because they will make your geometric network act funny and those kind of things. Any kind of
We were
geometry
looking at that last week, I think, because I converted it to a trace network in Pro to see how it would work, and because there are so many errors, it wouldn't really function well. It wouldn't do any tracing in the trace network. So once we get the errors under control, we can also play with the trace network and build some neat graphs and things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, there you can prioritize, these kind of errors and then go after them first. Yeah.
Yep.
So with this done, with the data reviewer configured, is there anything else that we need to do on the on your MXD or any of the settings?
We have done a trace, a simple trace.
Would you like to run a trace?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Well, it's up to Elijah right now because the training's done, so we're just sitting and watching now. So
But just don't do it with the zero geometry one.
let's trace upstream from that manhole that you see on this right in the middle of the screen there. Yeah,
This one here.
yeah.
You want to go upstream. Upstream from there is
I'm
there's nothing
sorry,
upstream from that.
downstream. Sorry, downstream.
The end of the stream.
Yeah.
Okay. So
We can do upstream too, but it won't show as much.
yeah, it's not going to be very impressive.
Let's do
It
it
might
this
get
way.
that lateral. I don't know.
There's one on the right side like a branch. And from the topmost
This over
manhole, you
here?
can do an upstream trace. Yeah.
From here. Okay.
Yeah.
So that is we wanted. What are we clicking to run the trace?
So we do the first one, the button that's looking like a flag with that little, yeah, you can select that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And then,
so I got a couple questions here. Can you click that drop down, Elijah? What are each of these? When would you apply these?
so if
This would
you're,
be to a manhole. This would be
Mhm.
to a line segment, and then this would be edges of the barriers. So if you wanted to trace from here to here, you would drop a barrier on the outsides of the trace so that it wouldn't go very far.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Haritha, you go ahead and answer.
No, that's correct. You're right, exactly right. So go ahead. Yeah, we select that and then trace tasks on the right side.
Uh-oh.
Why did it?
Mike, you want to hit send when it asks you. Ted knows that guy.
Yes. Yeah, it actually goes to a guy named Todd Steghorn.
I told you know everybody.
The show Sons of Anarchy, the guy that Jack's.
You thought of the name of the show. You
Huh?
thought of the name of the
Yeah,
show. I bet it bothered you all night.
I did. The guy that runs the bicycle club, Todd Steghorn has a resemblance to him. He's like a really, really low, mellow guy, but he's a big dude. You know, he's 6'6". He looks like he's a linebacker from college, or whatever, or defensive end, but he's a programmer, you know. So he's
Be a water polo stud.
Yeah, could be. We got a guy that's on my.
Because he can stand up in the deep end.
His son plays for the San Francisco 49ers. So he's a big dude, but his dad plays water polo, and the son never played water polo. But when he retires, his father's gonna try and get him into water polo because he's gonna be this 6'6", 325-pound water polo player, which would be outstanding. Yeah, so that's interesting.
We're just going to trace this area.
Hopefully we can't reproduce this. I would say let's just do a simple one.
We're going to
I
we're
think
just going to trace this area.
Let's do an upstream from that manhole because then it'll go in two different directions. Right?
yeah, you can trace, and I think what happened was probably
I'll watch from here.
Okay. Probably you click the find common ancestors instead of like there's a drop down and you pick the
You want to trace upstream.
right, and then you press that.
Ta-da.
Okay, so now how would you make sure instead of that red coloring, you would get a selection? You'd have to go into the analysis, and then there is options.
So you can change the color of the stream color, basically.
You could do that too, but I want a selection because maybe I want to change all the attributes of those upstream into something, right?
Oh, okay.
So for
Understand.
that, you would go into the result selection. That's it.
Because this is going to be
Sorry,
something
I
that
didn't mean to jump the gun.
Elijah and Mike D, you guys are probably going to have to show this to the engineers. Because they use the tracing capability.
It's going to be very important for a lot of different things. It's going to help a lot.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Cool functionality.
Especially if we've got a blockage or something like that, or a spill.
Oh, hopefully
This is going to be very.
What would happen if we have a blockage where the whole thing just explode?
No, we have them actually there. I think there have been 5 spills so far this year. A couple of weeks ago, we had a contractor drilling out on the southern side of the city, and they hit a force main near the Pierce lift station.
Oh, that's
which
bad.
that is as bad as it sounds, because that's our biggest lift station, so that's our biggest force main, and it was not a very good situation.
It's not a pleasant sight.
No,
Yeah.
or smell, really.
It's force main, so under pressure. And
Yeah. So is it shooting up? Is it shooting straight up in the air for that?
I was not there, but it was an unpleasant situation. So, and that the force mains, you see, that goes back to our user agreement, that meeting that we had with Utility Quest or whatever, because force mains are the ones that they do have. They don't have access to our gravity lines because we haven't paid them to be able to see our gravity lines.
wouldn't they
So the
have?
force mains are what 311 can see, or what they can see.
And with that, when you give me a tour, will you show me all that stuff?
Yes.
All right. Good.
I was thinking normally like people have this call before you dig kind of thing, right?
Yes,
Where they mark that.
and we do. We do have that, and our force mains are covered under that process, so that to prevent contractors from hitting a force main. It does not prevent contractors from hitting a gravity main, because it's not really as big of a deal to hit a gravity main. It's just a simple fix.
And it's 8 to 10 feet deep anyway, right? Usually the risk is for the force main.
Right.
They're a little bit upper in
Right.
depth.
A few years ago, we had 2 force mains explode near the Wood Road station. It was the same force main that exploded twice near the Wood Road lift station on the southern end of the city. That's another one that I'm going to take you to. So, there's lots of different. The city is actually building a whole like a pond around that one as a catch basin, where if that one explodes again, that's how big of a problem it is, because it's near a stream bed.
Yeah, and there will be a lot of, I mean, usually they involve EPA and stuff, and yeah.
All right. So you guys are live. You guys will edit when you edit.
Are you
and let us
satisfied?
know when
Are you good?
Let us know when your
Is
first
everything-
go up, and we'll probably have to start once you guys are live. We'll kick off a side project with Workflow Manager.
Okay.
So I think as of now, you're able to trace and trace upstream and downstream, because that's where the calculations that Ted had made on the data set, which was saying that this is the direction in which the lines are going, then this works
Right.
out.
So like this area here,
Mm-hmm.
where the lines are backwards.
Yeah, the trace would act funny, or not give you any
Yes.
proper results. So that's the thing that might happen. So as you keep progressing, and we'd like to know how we can support you and make sure that you're successful in your editing with the production. So Would you like a checkpoint? Would you like to, see when, maybe meet a few weeks later, or even in the Scrum meeting in the morning, just let us know how you're doing with this.
Yeah, I'd say like a couple weeks
We could-
out.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Ledger.
I was going to say the same thing, that in a couple weeks, we could probably just touch on it at the beginning of each Scrum meeting to see if we're running into any issues, if we've made what type of things that Mike and I are working on. And then as the editing progresses, we can add additional sections to that just to quickly cover it. And then if we have issues, we can schedule a more in-depth meeting.
Sure, that sounds like a good plan.
Yep. And I think actually the contract doesn't really end 10/31. I think all the edits are supposed to be done. I don't know if they're all going to be done, but I mean, the contract goes until really this whole project ends. So you guys, if everybody's editing and then they have a question and it happens to be November, I mean, technically speaking, I think that should be okay. But CJ would know more about that than me. But am I right on that, right, Aretha?
Yeah, we're still delivering stuff until December, actually. There's some non-essential documentation, as we're calling them, that's
Okay.
being delivered after the fact.
Yeah. So you guys could, you don't have to be, oh my God, I've got to find all the bugs now. So if it comes down to where it's September, October, November, because what will happen is, it's like you take a class from a math teacher and you learn how to do something, and then you go home and you forget how to do it. You're like, damn, I can't talk to that person anymore because, but for this, you have some time. So
Yeah, we want to make sure
Aretha.
Uh-huh.
No, yeah, the video recordings of our initial meetings for editing, have those been submitted to the city?
I believe so. I'm actually even recording today's meeting. So we'll make sure that I'll go back and make a list, like in a spreadsheet or something, and then make sure that you have the links to all of them.
Yeah. I know you guys created it. You have everything out on OneDrive. You sent me a link on OneDrive, but it's like it's like a big grab bag. Is there any way to like organize
Yeah,
the
we'll
OneDrive to say this is sewer, this is storm, this is
Yes.
water, this is electric?
Yes, we can do it that way. We'll put it in different folders and then tell you exactly which date, the file name usually has the meeting title, and so we'll somehow organize it for you. Yeah, we'll give that
Great.
information.
Because I think Mike's going with, he wants to use those to help train Doug.
Sure. Yeah, I think next week, by next week, we'll be able to do that for you. Okay.
And Doug is going to
Thank you.
enjoy himself immensely when he starts editing the lines, I bet.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get Doug to say something. He doesn't say anything. He hasn't said anything all day. There he goes. Here he comes. So when are we going to start doing cadastral stuff? When's that supposed to come about?
Cadastral, we are testing out the workflow. So obviously, the model is different, and
Yeah.
so what we thought was that the original workflows that are available through the parcel fabric editor, they all actually met most of the requirements, but having the change in the model, so we're trying to backtrack a little bit and then see, okay, if we created something, and this we are doing it on our environment and file database, that we enable the model and then we're peeling back the unneeded information, the PLSS information, and then seeing which of these workflows are still working.
Okay.
So that we can have something that's working, without like it works as it should. And we have noticed that they're all working okay, but we have to see how much schema changes that involved, and we don't want to make we want to make minimal possible schema changes.
Okay.
Okay. So
All right.
that's what we're testing currently. um, Lata has some schema changes for water, but we will let you know, because one of the things that happened was abandoning, and it's not in a rush right now because we want to show and then discuss in the training. And then once everybody agrees on the water team, then we'll let you know what the schema change would be for abandoning lines. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Any questions, anybody right now?
I think I'm good, Haritha. Thank you for your help this week. Does anyone else, Lies on the wall, any questions?
I'm good too. Thank you.
I'm good too.
Okay.
Doug or Lisa, did you have any questions from what you've watched today or yesterday?
I think Doug might have audio issues or something. I can't hear him.
Yeah, he just unmuted, but I don't hear him.
Yeah, I know I had audio issues earlier too, so that might be the same thing. Not with GoToMeeting, but just with that remote desktop thing, I think.
So what I would advise is once we get the videos for Doug, Doug goes through the videos, Doug goes through the training, and then pick a time in the next couple weeks, like as part of you guys coming back to DCC, if he has any like questions that it's easiest to have them answered, then maybe that's the way it is. But you guys are kind of like you guys are train the trainers, so in a way we use you in the middle between DCC and Doug. So if there's something that you can't answer, I would say in a couple of weeks, Doug can come back and ask questions of DCSE. But we would want to try with you, Mike, as being the lead to facilitate the answers.
Yeah, and I'm hoping by next week I'll have like a simple edit that I want to actually push up to, have it.
Yeah.
To have Ken look through it and do whatever you guys are going to do to publish it.
Yep.
So maybe it'll give us a feel of that whole process then.
And then once we get to that point, what I'd probably advise for DCSE is maybe that's a time where Ken does the reconcile and close, and we do it in a session. Because you guys, I don't think you guys have done any like conflict resolution for Ken. Because Ken's brand new at SDE, so for the most part, he may have experience from 10 years ago, but he doesn't have any experience now. So
yeah, I don't have current experience on
it. Almost when you get that edit in, we sit down with Ken, let him go through his workflow. He does his reconcile, he does his post. If no conflicts gonna arise, cool. It's super easy. He just posts it up as the SDE user, and we go from there. Now, what I don't have current experience. For Elijah and Mike, when you guys have an MXD and you're pointing to that individual department, that version, I'd almost think that this, because we used to deal with this in the mapping group, we'd have to go in and repoint the versions back to default. So, because if you open up that MXD before I delete the version, then it's easy. You just switch to default. But if we delete the version before you change this, you switch the path, then you get all those exclamation points. And you can't just change the version, then you have to repair data source. So that's
I have an unrelated question.
That's a workflow we probably will want to iron out to drill into that. But I'm hopeful of doing a workflow on that. It's just it's not front and center right now.
Okay. I have an unrelated question that is going to apply to both Mike and myself. What about replacing the feature services that we have in AGOL right now with this production data set? Are we able to do that? So then we could essentially, our edits will, once they're approved and pushed up, then we would almost have a live version.
So you want to be able to take the basically whatever's in default, you want to push default up to production. I mean to Arctis Online.
Yes.
And so do you
Are we
want
able
me
to do that now?
Are you able to do that now? Do you want me to give you a script that you guys can do that with?
I'm fine. I was going to do it manually because I needed to rebuild. I was just going to basically delete everything that I have in HOL and rebuild it with our current data that is accurate, or the correct paths and everything.
I have a published script that will take everything. It goes through Pro, just so you know. It's a Pro script. It goes out.
I also
all the
use
data.
Pro for posting everything.
Oh yeah. I just like the API. I like the Python API in there. It will go through, look through all the data sets in your Pro document, and will publish it up. And then when you want to run it again, it will overwrite the services. Now, the code I wrote is 99% of it is copied out of the help. I just put a little loop in there, so I can't vouch to say I wrote this thing. It was really the GP team that wrote 99% of it, but I put a for loop in there. I can send it to you guys. You guys can poke around, look at it, and see if that's useful for you. What I would hope for in Arctis Online is when you guys push the data up, is we put it in an area that everybody has access to it. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has edit rights to it, but just so that we don't have duplication of data. Like I don't want to have sewer data, sewer mains that you put up and then Wes puts up and then Lindsay puts up because they're doing a offline app. If we could come up with a best practice on that so that we can streamline and reduce redundancy on Arctis Online. That's my only worry on it.
I agree. In general, there are some products that I use in HOL that take the sewer main and they append a table to it from our work orders and things like that. And that specific layer is not for use with everybody. It's just an internal sewer layer, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I think you guys want to start dabbling with taking this data. Once we push up the default, then yeah, absolutely, you can do that. You can publish it straight from GIS Edit, or you could wait till it replicates over to GIS Maps. I'll probably replicate, at this point, maybe once a week. I just haven't turned on the script yet.
I was just wondering where we should pull it from. Was GIS Edit or GIS Maps or what?
Yeah, so at this point, it's probably easiest. The quickest way to get to it is just GIS Edit, but GIS Maps does have a copy of your. So basically, what I do is I have an archive set up for both these two, Edit and Storm. I mean, Storm and Sewer.
Okay.
So that's another thing, another toolbar you guys can play around with is the Geodatabase History toolbar in ArcMap to look at like historical time. But just note that every time you post it to default, it's not a true history of the feature. It's just the history of the feature when it got posted to default. And so I enable archiving, and then I use the archiving capability to build the replicas because they seem to work better with annotation, file-based, geodatabase annotation. Once I get there, you guys don't have that, but this is going to be something that's going to affect water and electric. Right now, I only have a replica that goes to GIS Maps. At some point, I'm going to have a replica that's a file geodatabase replica, because this is how we're going to do disaster recovery for storm data and sewer, is we're going to push it over to EOC as file geodatabases. But if you guys just want to push around the data purchase online, then yeah, I think that's fine. We just make sure we're the whole redundancy I'm most worried about. And unfortunately, you guys aren't on ArcFM classes, so you can go right to Arctis Online and it's actionable. ArcFM stuff.
Okay.
Come up with.
I think that answers my question. Anything else from the peanut gallery?
Okay.
Thank you very much for your time, Aretha and Latha and Adam.
Thank you. Yeah.
We appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. Okay, thank you. Then we look forward to we'll touch base during the Scrum meetings and talk about your progress then. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay safe.